Welcome, everyone, to the Salt City Hoops live postcast. Hopefully, you've all understood that we are joining from our new channel. We're here on the Salt City Hoops new channel, which is great. Like, we have an actual thing going on here for Salt City Hoops. Man, this is the third time in a row I have put the incorrect score on the graphic here, so we're going to fix that real quick. The Jazz lose today, 106-117, which you are not seeing on the screen. I was too quick to talk about, put in the stats and the beer information, and I don't have the correct score on. So I'm fixing that now as we speak. Wanted to listen to Will Hardy's postcast, right? That's what we're doing. Listen to his post-game presser today. And I find that Will Hardy always has a lot more to say after losses than wins, which is pretty much the inverse of what you think. It's definitely the inverse for players. Players are pretty much just kind of digesting what they just had. But Will Hardy has this brain to just be like, look, here are the things that worked and didn't work for this team. And yeah, he had some things to say today. So we now have the updated score on the graphic. Thank you all for joining for the Salt City Hoops live postcast. Now on the Salt City Hoops channel. Maybe one of these days we'll get the access to the old Twitter handle and do the Twitter Spaces branded via Salt City Hoops as well, which would be super, super cool in my personal opinion. But we'll get there shortly. But this is also the live postcast and beer. And at the start of every broadcast, I tell you, what the hell am I drinking? And today we have from our friends at Equilibrium Brewing in New York. Don't know if this is a collab with anybody. I think it's just Equilibrium, which is in New York, up the Hudson River a little bit. Not New York City, but not Western New York either, which is where I hail from. This is our Middletown Mud Pie. This is a very fudgy beer that tastes like a candy bar, right? That tends to be the theme for these winter beers I'm drinking. When we get warmer weather, I'll pull out the other stuff, but I know I'm drinking a lot of Imperial Stouts these days. This is an Imperial Stout with chocolate, pecans, Madagascar, vanilla, marshmallow, and sea salt. Can't really detect the salt a whole lot. I think I really like it when a good chocolatey beer has a nice finish of salt, but not tasting it quite a lot. But it's a delicious beer. You just can't go wrong with a deep, fudgy Imperial Stout with hints of vanilla and a little bit of a different flavor like pecans in it, which I appreciate. So that's a beer. I'll be drinking this all postcast. I got 500 milliliters to get through here. This is great. Basically, someone told me it's like, Mark, you're basically drinking a bottle of wine on every one of these postcasts. And I don't think it's quite a whole bottle of wine. But we're here, guys, for the Salt City Hoops live postcast. Let's talk about this loss to the Nets. Royce O'Neal's return to Utah, which I think was unfortunately kind of unheralded. Royce O'Neal was a quintessential part of the identity of the Utah Jazz over the past 4 years, and I feel like the failure over the past 2-3 seasons of the Utah Jazz is going to leave a lot of sour taste in Jazz fans' mouths about players like Royce O'Neal and some of these support players that really did help the team win a shitload of games, as opposed to players that succeeded when we thought they wouldn't in times of stress, like Paul Millsap and Wesley Matthews. A lot of Paul Millsap's obviously a better player, of course, but I'm trying to think of other players that, like, we think very fondly of Alec Burks, right? And I feel like there's a lot of negativity towards Royce O'Neal because of what he couldn't do, whereas we have a lot of fond memories of Alec Burks. Maybe it's because of Burks' injuries. We just thought he could have been more, and it wasn't his fault that he actually was pretty bad a lot of the time. But I also love Alec Burks, right? I loved what he did coming out of Colorado and just being this athletic, fun guy, weird personality, quiet guy, like would lay down vicious dunks. And I think we're losing a lot of what makes Royce O'Neal great. Basically making the Jazz from an open practice, right? Like, this wasn't, he signed to training camp on a non-guarantee, undrafted, or he was in the G League on a two-way. The Jazz just held, like, an open practice to say, like, well, we need a body. We need to figure out who our two-way guys. We need to figure out who our G League candidates are going to be. And that dude played so fucking well, he got a main roster spot and parlayed that into his second contract. Good three-point shooter, rugged defender, and I think watching him play defense this year, watching him play defense tonight, I almost wonder if, like, something about the Jazz broke him a little bit, right? And I think something about the Jazz broke a lot of people last year. But I think Royce O'Neal was probably unfairly victimized by Jazz fans in a lot of ways, where I think we should really revere what he provided this team. I don't think there was a lot of fanfare coming up to this game, and I think that's unfortunate. I was guilty of it too. Like, I was like, I kind of circled it on the calendar, like Royce O'Neal's return game, but didn't really notice anything too much of it. And all that to say is Royce O'Neal has a great game today. Right? He finishes plus 10 with 13 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. By the way, he has a triple-double this year. Royce O'Neal does. He has 6 assists today, team lead in assists, and 3 of 8 from 3. Just does Royce O'Neal things, only 2 turnovers, 34 minutes, and rugged defense across the roster, defending a myriad of positions. Royce O'Neal was Utah Jazz prime Royce O'Neal today, and we got to see that. But we also got a first-round pick for him, which was also kind of a steal. So kind of it worked out well for both sides. O'Neal was perfect for what the Nets needed. They needed Bruce Brown. They needed someone like Bruce Brown, but who could actually shoot the basketball, and that's definitely Royce O'Neal. He's still got verve. He's still young. He can grow with the team a little bit. So I'm not sure that's quite worth the first-round pick that the Nets gave up, but that ends up being a pretty solid maneuver. But this ends up being Kyrie Irving's show. No Kevin Durant, as has been the case for a couple weeks now. Durant will be out for a little bit longer. So this team is being led by Kyrie Irving, but of course, when it's the Utah Jazz and you're playing a scoring guard on a team that is losing a key piece or 3, and their main offense is going to be a scoring guard every trip down the court, you can sure as shit bet that player is going to completely kick Utah's ass, and that is exactly what happened today. Kyrie Irving with 48 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, 8 of 15 from 3, 18 of 29 overall. He shoots 62%, 8 of 15 from 3 is over 50% from 3. And guys, if we're being honest with ourselves, that is not an outlier performance, right? Like, that is that's a problem. Just realized I had not tweeted out the YouTube link to the postcast, so I appreciate everyone joining the Twitter Spaces here. But let me quickly tweet out our YouTube link is here. Also live on Twitter Spaces. Link in bio. Let's talk Royce O'Neal's return and Kyrie's 48. And the Jazz. If those who are watching on YouTube, you do note that my second line here is, I am going to yell at you about the trade deadline. So I promise to everyone who's listening in, I'm going to be talking about the trade deadline as well. I realized I sent out this link to my various Slack channels and my Discords that I'm in, but not actually tweeting it out to my 10 followers. So talked about Royce O'Neal. Let's talk about Kyrie Irving's 48. Like, what I was going to get into was none of Kyrie Irving's 48 felt forced. Like, there was never he does shoot a little bit from distance. He can pull up a little bit more from distance. That can kind of feel forced from time to time, but that's kind of like in his bag. That's what he does. That is a valuable Kyrie Irving shot. Those are all within the realm of what he's trying to do. It's not like Utah was forcing him into difficult shots. We weren't watching Jordan Clarkson on the other side, right? This is a guy who is very easily getting to his spots, especially in the second half, which was just brutal to watch him just waltz into a lot of these threes in the second half. Very frustrating to watch from that perspective. Just and part of the reason you're ending up in these situations is obviously the Jazz don't have a lot of perimeter defense, but also all the big men on the court. Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, at times it was Rudy Gay, at times it was Jared Vanderbilt. No one was really helping, like, force Kyrie Irving off the three-point line, put him in the mid-range, and don't give him an opportunity to kick it out to the corner. Now, of course, you end up in a situation like we saw, against the Dallas Mavericks in the playoffs last year, is you end up with allowing Kyrie Irving to just like shoot wide open mid-range jumpers, and that can be over and over and over again and can really kill you as a team, because he's that good of a scorer. Of course he's going to do that, but you kind of have to pick one or the other. And they were letting him shoot threes and listening to Will Hardy's, or just like kind of get to his spots, even if it's not going to be threes. They were kind of not forcing a middle, and the passes he was making were quite easy. And Will Hardy postgame was like, we had to get him off the 3-point line, especially in the fourth quarter, and we absolutely did not do it. Walker Kessler did not show up to the level of the screen a couple times, and Kyrie shot some threes, and it was. Kyrie only made 5 threes at the end of the day, but he shot 5 of 9 from 3 in the second half, and that means he was 3 of 6 so he shot 5 threes in the second half, and I think a lot of them came in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 4 of his 5 threes in the second half were in the fourth quarter. So Kyrie Irving, 21-point fourth quarter. You extrapolate that out, that's an 84-point game. That seems right for a Utah defense to have to to suffer through. So that was a little bit of a frustrating experience, watching Kyrie Irving go for 48. The starters struggled in a myriad of ways for Utah. The number one thing I'm going to call out is the physicality against Lauri Markkanen, and this is going to become a little bit of a Lauri Markkanen rant for me. So Markkanen has a big blind spot that two teams. I'm already forgetting the second team, but the Nets definitely exploited it tonight. Lauri Markkanen is not used to double teams in the NBA, friends. He's not someone that has ever needed to be double teamed before. And any sort of situation from the jump, the Nets were saying Lauri Markkanen is not going to get the ball cleanly. We are going to wrestle with him all game. And when he does get the ball, we're going to send people. We're going to send a bunch of bodies towards him and make him make decisions. And you never once this entire game saw Lauri Markkanen get put in a difficult situation with people guarding him with multiple bodies, put the ball on the deck, and make a decision off the dribble. It was like, all right, I need to get it to one of my ball handlers. I need to do it pronto, right? There were times when Markkanen was getting frustrated and was just getting in wrestling matches with these guys off the ball, and instead of using his other skills to get open and do cuts and just kind of put the defense in stressful situations, he was saying like, all right, you know what, Ben Simmons, you want to fuck me up, I'm going to fuck you up. And then they just got in these horrible wrestling matches that really mucked the offense off the ball, right? And like, yeah, you can design a play where it's like, hey, we're going to get the first pass of this play design or this possession is get Lauri Markkanen the ball at the elbow, or get him the ball at the high post, or wherever you're trying to do it. And if that gets mucked up, it's almost like Utah was trying to force it to him. But Markkanen also didn't make it easier either. Like, a modern NBA offense is meant to have different flexibility to it. And if Markkanen's getting wrestled and muscled up, Markkanen didn't. He like played to the level of physicality that Brooklyn wanted him to give them, instead of using his speed and his other skills to really make Brooklyn run around a lot, right? We just didn't see a whole lot of, oh shit, Markkanen is doing all these off-ball cuts and forcing Brooklyn to run around. You just didn't see that, which Markkanen has the skill to do. It was almost like they drew him into a physical game, and it was a combination of Ben Simmons, first of all, I'll talk about him in a minute, definitely a lot of Nick Claxton, but also there was a lot of double team situations where they were totally willing to switch about 98% of the game. So you would end up with like Seth Curry guarding Lauri Markkanen, or some other guard like an Edmund Sumner or something like that. And Brooklyn would just immediately send a double team, and Utah reacted so slowly to these double teams that Brooklyn ended up like not really needing to send a double team until absolutely necessary. So you could have Nick Claxton still like under the rim, kind of guarding the paint and mucking up other things, while Lauri Markkanen is trying to figure out like, oh, are they going to send the double team? Or are they not? Right? And it's a huge learning game for Lauri Markkanen. They're going to go back and look at this tape and be like, look, man, you're a star now. You are a guy that people are going to care about. You're a guy that defenses are going to game plan about. This whole first half of the season where you can just run around, kind of do whatever, and be single cover the entire time, like, that's cute, but it's not going to work anymore. It's just not going to work anymore as is just like a one-on-one offensive player. You need to do a little bit more. The one thing that he's probably not going to learn this year that I've claimed has been his blind spot since the beginning of the season is natural distribution of the basketball. The simple pass out of double teams, the simple pass when they're sending a surprising defense, that you can reduce it down to recognizing if, like a quarterback does in football, like just the basic, hey, if they're sending a blitzer from this direction, then the basic high school response is that means somebody is open where the blitzer is coming from. Now you get to the NFL and you start disguising where the blitzes are coming from, or you cover the blitzer with a different player and you end up confusing quarterbacks that way. But the base, what defenses are telling Lauri Markkanen now is, hey, if we provide any sort of novel defense where we're putting pressure on you, Lauri Markkanen, to make a play, you have no fucking clue where the actual positive basketball play is. You're just going to give it out to Mike Conley. You're going to give it out to Jordan Clarkson and just start the possession all over again. Now, that's a low-risk move, and Lauri Markkanen is delightfully low turnover. I think that's a very underrated part of his game, especially on a team that just throws the ball over the gym like the Utah Jazz do this year. But Markkanen's needs to kind of figure out, like, hey, if the blitzer's coming from this direction, if the double team's coming from this direction, here is where the open pass should be. Underrated skill of Rudy Gobert, by the way. We talk about these little things that Rudy does to just that led to the number one offense of Utah. Is not, yeah, Rudy couldn't do anything with the basketball, but sometimes if teams were so afraid of him scoring those easy 2-point baskets, Rudy always knew where, like, the ball should be going, right? And he was very good at, if they confused and try to confuse him and say, like, oh, well, where the double's coming from, we're actually going to help that guy and leave the wing wide open. Rudy always found it. He was always very good at that sort of thing. So next up for Lauri Markkanen, right? I think it's one thing to be a quote-unquote ball distributor, as a guy who dribbles the basketball, who receives screens and dribbles around screens and finds open guys and runs a pick and roll, but like a guy in Lauri's situation where he is a play finisher, right? He doesn't have the usage as a distributor. He's got to be able to make these basic reads, and he really struggled with that today. He got his ass kicked physically today. I don't think that Markkanen was weak. I don't think he was getting run over. I think he was just willing to dive into these wrestling matches, and it totally mucked up the offense, and he ended up forcing shit. He attempted like a 38-foot three-pointer today early in the shot clock for no fucking reason. The Jazz were down 6 or 7 or 5 points or something like that. He gets the ball, I think Mike Conley dribbles the ball up the court and sets up the play to have a Markkanen isolation. We don't even know what the play was going to be, but Markkanen gets the ball at the top of the arc, but like 8 feet beyond it, and he just jacks up a three. What are you doing, man? Right? I don't mind early shot clock threes. Markkanen had one about a minute or two later where he was on the line, on the wing, where it was like, 15 seconds left on the shot clock, and it was just a round the horn pass. Mike Conley or Jordan Clarkson passes it over to him on the right wing, and he just jacks up a three. He makes it. That's fine. I don't mind Lauri Markkanen with his height and his shot speed to take those kinds of threes, but that 35-footer that clanked off the rim terribly, or I don't even know if it hit rim, that was a frustration shot. So you're going to look at the stats and say, Markkanen, 22 and 11, what's the problem? Well, Markkanen was minus 18 today. A team low, minus 18 for Markkanen today, which is just not Markkanen's. Markkanen's usually in the plus category in these things, and that's a big, big reason why. His defense, I think Utah's Kyrie defense was kind of adequate because you're dealing with a Nets team that is playing Ben Simmons and having some situations out there. but Markkanen just wasn't doing playing that effective defense against Nick Claxton, especially in the second half when they put Walker Kessler on Ben Simmons, which I thought they should have been doing from the beginning, frankly. But they have Markkanen on Claxton, and Claxton he was able to get 20 points, right, just off of putbacks. He was 8-9 from the field, and certainly a lot of that was abusing Walker Kessler early on, but a lot of it was second half stuff too. So Markkanen, his stat line looks fine, 6 of 10 from 3, and it's funny that we can now point to a 22-11 game as a bad game for him, because I think this was a team that, with the type of defense they were playing, by sicking Royce O'Neal and Ben Simmons on him, and sometimes Nick Claxton, and just saying like, all right, Lowry, let's get physical, and he met their physicality, but his physicality is more about it has a lot of speed element too, and I don't think that was being used well enough today. Jordan Clarkson did his best to kind of keep us in at 29, 4, and 5. Efficient day for him, 11-22 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, had 5 of 5 from the free throw line. But, he's going to give you 4 turnovers and 4 bad fouls. He also finishes minus 17 today, and he commits a wild help decision late. Jazz are hanging on by their strings. They're down 6 with about a minute and a half left, maybe a minute 10 or something like that. And Kyrie Irving gets by Lauri Markkanen on a switch, and he's driving to the middle of the paint. And Jordan Clarkson helps from the strong side, corner 3, which is Seth Curry. Walker Kessler was in the paint, or he was in the vicinity. It's got to be a possession that you got to let Kyrie Irving just take that shot and get to the paint. He didn't have a wide open runway, like there would have been a contest, but as soon as Clarkson takes her step or two in, you get that corner pass to Seth Curry. That's an easy 3. Seth Curry also had a back-breaking 3 late in the game. Before that it was Irving and Curry 3s late that really sunk the Jazz, especially because they were defendable. I think you could have defended them a little better. Look, it's the end of the game. You get tired. There's probably a lot of excuses for that. But Brooklyn's coming off a road back-to-back after playing Phoenix last night. Utah is rested. I can't buy the tired argument. One guy who looked tired as shit today was Walker Kessler. He was behind every break opportunity, defensively, offensively, always behind the play. He plays only 25 minutes today, and deservingly so. He could not match up against Claxton. He had a couple near misses, near blocks, but everything was just not quite enough matching up against Claxton. And Kessler had a couple good plays. He had a nice little fingernail block on a Seth Curry layup attempt that was nice, but talk about being out physical. He had some issues today. Will Hardy claims that he thinks that Kessler's defense and offense, sort of confusion or lack of energy, it looks like, might be because you're just playing like a switching scheme with Brooklyn, and was just putting in Kessler in some awkward positions where it was hard for him to make decisions, right? You're putting guys in isolation on the ball handler front, and Kessler really doesn't know where to go. I'm not quite sure I buy that, if only because the Jazz have played plenty of switching defenses this year, but could have just, he's a rookie. Maybe it takes a while for that sort of reaction to defensive styles to be innate for him. We've kind of taken a lot of what he can do for granted. I just thought his defense was also could have been better, especially against Nick Claxton, which Nick Claxton is the exact reason you have Kessler out there. I really enjoyed Will Hardy's post-game presser today, by the way. I think he's a lot more vociferous in some of these post-game pressers after losses than wins, which is pretty interesting at times. I'm trying to think of what next to talk to you about here. I just thought that the front court got out physical. I thought Jared Vanderbilt also was a victim to this, although Vanderbilt was a +5 today. 9 rebounds for him, 9 points, had a 3-pointer, but 3-9 from the field, and I have his shot chart pulled up here. Yeah, 3-9 from the field. Take away the 1 of 2 from 3, so that means he's 2 of 7 from the field. He missed all 4 of his floater range attempts, and it was like a battle between him and Ben Simmons to like who had the ugliest floater range shot today. So he missed all of his floaters. They were way off, and some of them were wide open too. He had a weird segment in the second half where he bricked one of those wide open floaters, got his own rebound and missed the layup, and then by happenstance it just like bounces off a Brooklyn net foot to retain possession. I'm sure the Jazz borked that up. So just a real struggle from the front court today. And when you're playing a guy like Kyrie Irving is going to go off for 48, like the Jazz can win this game, right? Like it becomes a winnable game with the Jazz shooting 41% from 3. You get good performances from at least like a scoring perspective, right? From Jordan Clarkson, you get 7 of 12 from Colin Sexton. You have an efficient day from Lauri Markkanen, even though you're pining for more. It's a decent scoring day. Mike Conley, chipping in. I thought he scored more than this. He's only 1 of 4 from 3 today. It was that one deep 3 I think clouded my thought of his scoring today. This was a winnable game despite Kyrie Irving's 48, and I just think it's because you're needing more than 2 points out of Walker Kessler, and frankly, at this day and age, you're needing more than 22 out of Lauri Markkanen. Markkanen finishes a minus 21 today. Walker Kessler minus 14. Jordan Clarkson a minus 20. All of the Jazz bench were positive today. Agbaji finishes a team high plus 10. Horton Tucker only played in the first half 5.5 minutes. Nickeil Alexander-Walker did not play at all, and Horton Tucker did not play in the second half. And this has happened a lot with Will Hardy's rotation, where he'll play one of those two guys in the first half and doesn't play him at all in the second half. There was one time where he replaced one with the other. And Agbaji's emergence kind of helps with that, but he only played 12 minutes today and was a complete non-factor, really. Hardy subbed Agbaji in earlier than he usually does to try to get some defensive mojo going, and he just wasn't the focus of any sort of Brooklyn offense. It was a Kyrie Irving thing, and Hardy kept Conley on Irving pretty much all game as the point of attack defender, and if it wasn't him, then it was if Conley was on the bench, then you had Colin Sexton guarding him, and we had a couple possessions where Jared Vanderbilt guarded him, and I thought I just prefer that if your point of attack defense is going to be poor, and you have a guy like Walker Kessler out there, or maybe even Lauri Markkanen as your center, then Can we put any sort of length on him, right? He didn't trust Malik Beasley on Mike Conley, deservedly so. Second game in a row, we've played the lineup of Conley, Clarkson, Sexton, Beasley as your 4-guard lineup. Last game, it was Kessler manning the middle. This time, we played a few minutes with Lauri Markkanen as the center, and that lineup actually ended up pretty effective. I can't wait to see if that lineup was actually effective tomorrow, but I thought that was quite unique. So, yeah, that's the player rundown. I don't really feel like talking about Malik Beasley's 4 of 10. I love 4 of 11. I love having him shoot the threes. Totally fine. Colin Sexton, 0 rebounds, 1 assist, 17 points. That's exactly what we're going to expect. I think the last player comment I want to make is that we have Utah was just really trying to break the Brooklyn switching defense at a point. And if you start thinking about how to break a switching defense, you think, all right, the easiest thing to do is acquire a double team somewhere, right? And you switch a small guy onto, and this is something we can never do with Rudy Gobert, right? Because teams were like, all right, yeah, sure, post up Rudy against Reggie Jackson. We don't care. So Will Hardy tried, and we were having Lauri Markkanen, that, as I explained already, ad nauseum. It's just not his game. So we ended up in a situation where Will Hardy is putting out lots of Rudy Gay out there, drawing switches on Rudy Gay, and having Rudy Gay post up Joe Harris, having Rudy Gay post up Seth Curry, right? And it ends up being like kind of a clever move, because Rudy Gay, if you start looking at the roster and you're like, oh yeah, with no Olynyk on the floor, right? Olynyk's still out. He practiced recently in light work. We might get him in the next 4 or 5 games or so. Yeah, you look at the roster, and if you're trying to keep Markkanen off the ball for whatever reason, right? Your next best post threat is Rudy fucking Gay, right? And he makes one delicious play where they double off of him and they have to help the double team and make sure that they're guarding Walker Kessler under the paint. And that leaves Lauri Markkanen wide open for a cross-court three, and that was buckets for Markkanen. Easy three for him. The next possession, Rudy Gay, this is the possession that Vanderbilt borked, so maybe this isn't Vanderbilt's fault. Rudy Gay, this time, that's right, it wasn't Kessler in the middle, it was Vanderbilt on that first play as well. So you have Vanderbilt underneath the rim. They send Claxton over to help Seth Curry guarding Rudy Gay in the post. And they keep the man home on Markkanen. So that cross-court pass to Markkanen for a wide-open three is no longer available, right? What you have is a wide-open Jared Vanderbilt right underneath the rim. And look, that's a difficult pass to make. You're throwing the ball around two large gentlemen. One of them is 7 feet tall, and Claxton. But Rudy Gay he goes around the Seth Curry side to have a nice open pass to Jared Vanderbilt. That pass is open, and he whips it at Jared Vanderbilt's ankles. Just the hardest pass you could possibly make right at his feet. And God bless Jared Vanderbilt. He secured the ball, but after some struggle, and that's kind of why he missed that. It wasn't quite a layup, wasn't quite a floater. He just kind of got it up there, got his own rebound, and missed the layup off his offensive rebound. Those were the two Rudy Gay post-up possessions off of a double. And I thought it was kind of an inspired play call, if I'm not going to lie. There was a third one where he posted up Seth Curry. They didn't send the double, and he tried to shake him and do a post mid-range jumper, and he definitely missed that. But Rudy Gay, as he does, he's +3 in 60 minutes today. So that's the last comment I wanted to make, just because it was like for a moment, it was like Rudy Gay has a place on this team in this particular moment against a switching defense against a guard. So is what it is. Hey, reminder, I've done a lot of talking. I gotta have a beer. So welcome to the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer on the Salt City Hoops channel on YouTube. I'm going to do the embarrassing thing and say that subscribe to this channel. We're going to have a lot of recorded content on there. Obviously, we got Dan Clayton's trade deadline previews, the Who Says No for Utah Jazz stuff. We might do some other trade deadline stuff coming up. And we'll get going. So yeah, Salt Bays, it's your boy Big Mark. Mash that button and pound the subscribe and bell icon. Thanks to the subscribers. We'll see you next time here on the Hoops. That's a request from a subscriber. It says like to make fun of the old like trying to get people to subscribe. So make sure to check out the YouTube and subscribe. My ugly face is on there right now. I love doing this. So you see the graphics that I have up there. The basic stat lines, the beer I'm drinking, the score of the game, obviously, and my stupid face drinking a beer. So I mentioned the trade deadline stuff. I will mention that this is a total open broadcast show. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you're on Twitter, you want to drop a comment, ask to speak. You can be a speaker on Twitter. You can drop a comment on YouTube. This is meant to be a post-game hangout. So whatever you want to do to help join the broadcast and have some fun with me, that is totally on you. Would love to have you take any comments. My second graphic up there says, I'm going to yell at you about the trade deadline. There's a lot of comments right now saying we want the Jazz to do something. And losing always makes people feel a little worse than always. But it's reaching a fever pitch right now, and we as Jazz fans have to be so conditioned over the past 10 years that the Jazz have let so many trade deadlines come and go where nothing happens, and that has been frustrating for a number of ways. it's a very real possibility, if I would say it's unlikely, that the Jazz are going to walk away from this trade deadline having made no moves. I think it is very likely, I think probably over 60%, that the only move that the Jazz make at the trade deadline is relatively minor. And I mean, no first round picks are incoming, right? It could be very much second round pick stuff where you like a Jared Vanderbilt type trade where like we're keen to make some sort of trade where we acquire some sort of replacement asset for him, but we only get a second round pick in return, or a Kelly Olynyk trade or something like that. Think back to the Bojan Bogdanovic trade and how like the only first round pick that was available was encumbered by an enormous amount of salary, right? And as we've detailed on the website and here on the show, huge salary obligations for the Jazz are way worse than middling players, right? You need to have a clean cap sheet to be able to make some of these moves around the edges and acquire juicier first-round picks. So I think it's more likely than not you're going to look at go by this trade deadline and be like, the Jazz didn't do anything. And that's going to apparently be extremely disappointing for so many people. And I understand every trade deadline comes and goes, and everyone wants the Jazz to make a move. Every fan of every team wants the Jazz to make a move, or wants their team to make a move. And you listen to mock trade deadlines or proposed trades on whatever website you watch or listen to or read or whatever, and you think like, these trades seem like good things, right? And maybe you watch the Who Says No from Dan and say, hey, yeah, that seems like a good deal for both sides. That doesn't mean that the teams agree to it, right? And maybe there's a bidding war where you have some sort of situation on the other side. We're going to watch another team make a trade, and we're going to ask, hey, why couldn't we trade Malik Beasley for that package? Maybe that package wasn't available. I think Jazz fans are also angling because for the first time in a while, it seems like we have like a riverboat wheeler and dealer kind of guy at the helm, but Danny Ainge is also... Are we forgetting Danny Ainge almost trading for every single superstar in the league? Danny Ainge has almost traded for Anthony Davis 900 times. Danny Ainge will not make a deal if it's bad. He just won't. But he's going to explore. He's going to call everyone. And all the reports are about who he is as a dealer is he's not budging from his prices. And you have to believe in it from your non-Jazz part of it. You have to believe it in your organization that that's good for you, right? That this is going to lead you into something that is worth that high price. The Jazz are... I'm basically prefacing the idea of, like, if the Jazz don't make a move, people are going to be so fucking pissed. If they don't make a move this trade deadline, or they only make a tiny move that doesn't really move the needle at all, to give the Jazz more lottery balls or whatever, or no first-round picks incoming, that is so much less worse than what I thought the Jazz situation was over the past 2 years, where they had a little bit of prime draft capital and a championship caliber roster, and they were unwilling to make that final step for a top level talent to say, or starter level talent to say, like, look, we know what we have at Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and it's in secondary assets. We need to make the better play, right? And I think we've talked a lot about, like, there's a lot of valid reasons why maybe trades weren't done. The Derek Favors salary dump, I think, is going to haunt me for a long time, because that really reduced Utah's flexibility as to what they could do at last spring's trade deadline. That said, maybe Justin Zanuck kind of knew all along that it's not worth mortgaging the future for this team because it wasn't long. But like 2 years ago, I also felt like, hey, this team has real draft capital that wasn't used to upgrade the roster and really solidify. And 2 years ago, they were a super great team. And maybe it was just like we certainly didn't see the Clippers loss coming, right? And maybe this is just hindsight, but like they really weren't looking to trade any of their draft capital to say we're going to make this like an ironclad roster. No depth behind Rudy Gobert or to provide any sort of like 5-out style lineup to compete with an opponent like the Clippers. There's just like no flexibility there. So looking back on it, could they have made a deal that could have helped? And it's possible, right? If they don't make a deal this year, that is so much more benign and not an issue than over the past couple years. And I think an even graver offense, as far as non-Jazz trades go, is the Paul Millsap, Al Jefferson debacle. Right? Where these are guys who are on expiring contracts, they're starter-level players. We knew we were going to let them go. Or in Paul Millsap's case, we were like, there's no way we're keeping that guy. Right? And they walk for nothing. Utah and they were a middling team. I think they missed the playoffs by a game, right? It was they needed to beat the Lakers last game of the season or something like that, and they got blown out or something like that, as would happen. But that team was going fucking nowhere, and they could have received real stuff for Paul Millsap. If not Al Jefferson, but Al Jefferson, like, he's so clearly walking, right? So, and if you're thinking, like, hey, if we let these guys go, we're going to be in a little bit of a weird transitional period. Can we trade Al Jefferson's salary for a worse salary and a first-round pick, right? It could have set your team up. That was team-building negligence, right? I think that was a Kevin O'Connor period, or maybe even the first year of Dennis Lindsey. If anyone wants to correct me on that, I was about 2 or 3 years into my renaissance as like a Jazz fan, right? Like I became, or maybe longer than that, right? Like so I was, yeah, it was a few years after. It was definitely before Al Jefferson came to town that like I had like this renaissance to bring back to being a Jazz fan again. Obviously, I grew up with Stockton and Malone, all the good times, but I kind of lost my thread in Western New York when the Jazz weren't on TV anymore, right? with the with just a Kirilenko-led team, and then obviously we got Deron Williams coming out, kind of brought me back. Of course, it happens to a lot of teams, a lot of fans. But that was the first. I think that year was the first year that I really got into like the transactional side of the NBA. I've been in the transactional side of the NFL for a long time. Still love the NFL salary cap and the match. If you want to get into really confusing stuff, the NFL is becoming more and more complicated in a lot of different ways than the NBA. It's pretty fun. But that was the first year that I was like, all right, our team sucks. Like, our team's okay. Unlike this year, they weren't fun to watch. Like, I liked watching Al Jefferson in Minnesota because it was like, all right, for the 10 times a year I'm going to watch Minnesota or less. Oh, wow. He's fun to watch. He was great to own in fantasy basketball, right? Like 27 points and low turnovers and always 12 to 13 rebounds and always getting a block and a half. Great, reliable fantasy basketball guy. So I loved Al Jefferson. But then watching him on a night-to-night basis really sucked. And I can't imagine if any of you guys listening were at live Utah Jazz games. I really do want to know what it's like to watch Al Jefferson live and root for that. But so going into that season, it was pretty obvious that the Jazz weren't going to win anything. So not trading Paul Millsap and Al Jefferson was, I thought, a big mistake and really set the team back. If the team doesn't do anything this year, it doesn't fucking matter, guys. I think one of the players will get traded. At least one. It'll probably be for a minor asset. Guy I'm thinking is probably most likely to get traded is going to be, I think you'll see Malik Beasley traded for a pair of second-round picks. I mean, the price is a first-round pick. I'm sure that Ainge would love to just hold on to Beasley if he doesn't get that first-round pick. But something tells me that while it is a seller's market, I'm not sure what the buyers are really willing to give up. And we could walk away from this trade deadline a little disappointed. There's lots of conversations out there. I think people are interested in the Jazz stuff. But at the end of the day, all right, if we end up with the 14th and 18th and 25th first round draft picks this year, we have all this other stuff going forward, right? The Jazz are a 500 ball club this year. They're going to be perfectly 500. I wouldn't be surprised if they finished exactly 41-41. They play in the 9-10 playing game. They lose, they go home, and they have the 14th pick. Oh well, that's fine. There's not a real tangible difference in expected value onto the players you get between the 10th pick and the 14th pick. And getting to the 8th pick, I think, is going to be really hard. I think getting to the 6th pick is impossible unless you sit Markkanen, and I think that's a disfavor to Markkanen and everyone else on the team. I don't think you can do that big of tanking. I think you can maybe get to 10 or 9 if you really, really tried, but the difference between 9 or 10 and 14 is nothing. I said it on the last podcast. You can look it up. In 2019, the Phoenix Suns traded with the Minnesota Timberwolves on draft night, or a little bit before draft night. They traded their 6th pick, the Suns did, to Minnesota for their 11th pick. So Minnesota moves up 5 spots in the draft from 11 to 6. Guess what it cost Minnesota? Dario Saric, who was a useful role player at the time, ended up having a nice little backup center career in Phoenix for a year and a half before he tore his ACL, and he's been a total husk this year, but he wasn't all that valuable to begin with. So if we're talking about moving up from 11 to 6, 10 to 8, whatever, it's just not going to cost that much, guys. And tanking's not going to get it done. I obviously am pretty against kind of going for like a 4 seed or something like that and really trying to juice the team now. Just because I think like you can be patient with this roster a little bit. But enough with the complaining about 500 basketball. This team has a clean salary cap sheet going forward. We're not stuck with a 500 team for the next 4 years, let alone next year. Who knows what's going to happen at the draft this year, right? Like, you could trade any of those mid to first round draft picks, late first round draft picks for other shit. Like, you could end up in interesting situations with that. And so next year it might be a 500 ball club again. Might have Lauri Markkanen as an all-star. Maybe Mike Conley's been moved on by that point. Maybe you trade Mike Conley and his half guarantee onto a contender next year for a second round draft pick or something, right? And you have Colin Sexton starting and you end up with the 500 team. That's fine too. We got Minnesota's and Cleveland's draft picks all the way going forward. And as sexy as those draft picks seem now, they're sexy to other teams as well. So if next year you want to say, like, all right, we should probably make a bigger play for the playoffs, I think it's reasonable to do. You don't need to do anything right now. So stop yelling about it. So we'll have a lot more trade deadline content as the weeks go on. The actual trade deadline is actually not for a while. I keep thinking it's like tomorrow or something. Yeah, trade deadline's February 9th. So we got a lot of trade deadline stuff to talk about. I'm going to be yelling at you some more. I'm sure over the weeks. So the Jazz lose at home to the Brooklyn Nets. Frankly, a disappointing loss considering that the Nets don't have Kevin Durant, but they've been playing fantastic without Kevin Durant despite that. Kyrie Irving was terrific, 48 points. 48, that's right, 48 points. Kel surprise against the Utah Jazz. The scoring guard scores over 40. 48 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals for Kyrie Irving. 8 of 15 from 3, 5 of 6 from 3 in the second half, 18 to 29 from the overall. Just a fabulous performance from Irving, but not a lot of defensive pressure from Utah from its backcourt or its front court, frankly. Utah's front court was a little bit bullied defensively when Utah was on offense by Nick Claxton and Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons had a really nice defensive game today. He was pretty atrocious offensively, and every Nets starter has a wild plus minus. So you have plus 23 for Irving, plus 27 for Nick Claxton, plus 19 for 21 minutes in Joe Harris, plus 7 for Royce O'Neal's 34. Ben Simmons was a net 0. in his 37 minutes. So when he's off the floor, it was when Brooklyn really exploded and ended up winning by 11. But I thought Ben Simmons, while he was atrocious offensively and Utah's defense kind of got it more of a hold when he was on the floor, defensively he was quite stout against Lauri Markkanen and Jordan Clarkson today. I thought he had a few possessions on him, which was pretty solid. It's really sad, and I've never liked Ben Simmons anyway for going back from the Donovan Mitchell Rookie of the Year stuff. So I'm not saying I enjoy watching Ben Simmons suffer, but like I'm it's just an unpleasant watch, and I was happy when he wasn't on the floor. He's just got a dumb punchable face that I don't. I appreciate losing. Frustrating team to lose to, the Brooklyn Nets. I love Kevin Durant, but without him on the floor, it's hard to find some redeeming qualities about them. Although Yuta Watanabe is a delight to watch. And I'm glad TJ Warren's healthy too. I really like TJ Warren in Indiana. So, lose to the Nets. Check. I don't think they play again tomorrow. Let's check their schedule real quick so you know when the hell I'm going to go live. Next, home against the Hornets in 3 days. Another return for Gordon Hayward, who I believe is still injured. He didn't play recently. Of course, to check if Gordon Hayward's injured, I go immediately to my fantasy basketball team, which will tell you how bad my fantasy basketball team is this year. Yeah, he's still out. Who knows if he'll even make the trip to Utah. It is a hamstring injury, and he was doubtful for a long time. It says that he's likely to play in Saturday's game against Atlanta, so we'll see if Hayward plays tomorrow. Return for Hayward then will be the next game for Utah. Hopefully that's when Charlotte is absolutely reeling. Actually, I'm looking it up. This is the Nets' first win without Kevin Durant. I thought they had won a couple. Won for the first time since Kevin Durant's knee injury. I thought they had picked up a win before this. So this makes it even better, guys. Yeah, they had lost 4 straight. They lost to the Celtics, Thunders. Weird loss to the Spurs. They fought gamely against the shorthanded Suns. So the Suns are terrible. The Spurs are terrible. They lose to those teams on the road. They lose by 10 at home to the Thunder, and they lose by 11 at home to the Celtics, all without Durant. So winning against the Jazz on the road feels a little bit worse today. But that's the Jazz. That's a 500 basketball team for you. You're going to win some. You're going to lose the equal amount. Jazz transition defense was also pretty awful today, but we know that every time. Jazz shot 42% from 2 today. That's pretty awful. Just noticing some other things here. Yeah, man, 42% from 2 is really, really poor for Utah. They shot pretty decently from 3, but their 2-point percentage was pretty miserable. And that's the Jazz. Well, unless anyone wants to dive in and drop a comment or request to speak, this is going to be the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. I'm going to go finish off this beer here. Equilibrium Brewing Imperial Stout with chocolate, pecans, vanilla, marshmallow, and sea salt. I'm going to see if this Memphis Lakers game is still going on. I think it's just about finishing up. No, we got a 4-point lead for the Grizzlies going to the fourth quarter. So why don't we all go enjoy that, friends, and enjoy seeing the Grizzlies beat the Lakers. Always love beating the Lakers. Also, if you haven't seen it, I guess John Morant's dad got into it with Shannon Sharp on the baseline. So we'll see what happens there. Y'all have a good night. We'll catch you on Monday night for the game against Charlotte. Gordon Hayward's return. Love having you here for the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. My name's Mark. I love drinking beer. I love talking about the Jazz. I love doing it with you. And we'll do it again Monday. Y'all have a good night.